Hi, guys. Welcome back to I Will Go Down with the Ship. This is our first official episode. So excited, so excited. All right. My name is Heather,
And I'm Chelsea.
and we
And
are going to talk about Fallout.
yes, today we are talking about episode 1, The End. I love how they titled these episodes just as a side note. Like I love how the episode titles went
Oh, yeah.
from the end to the beginning and like that gives me hope for our
Oh,
fraction
the
first of
beginning.
all.
Wink, wink.
Yeah. Yeah. But so let's dig in.
Okay, Chelsea, why don't you jump in? Because I feel like you have notes and that, yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, first we're gonna dive in. I love the opening where we see Cooper Howard, like pre-nukes,
Who
and
doesn't love seeing Cooper Howard though? Like, let's just be honest.
God, that man makes me so thirsty. It's not
Okay,
even funny.
like 30 seconds of silence for Walton Goggins. Like, just okay. Go ahead.
But yes, so A is for alimony. First of all, I love that in this opening scene that I feel like a lot of people forget that he and Barb
Yes.
are already split up at
Yes.
this point, that he is playing these kids' parties and making these appearances to pay her alimony, which like thank God, first of all, that they are split up because like
Oh yeah.
I have
Well,
so
and
many
it
fears.
it makes me and that's interesting because you that you point that out because and then obviously we're going to touch about it across the 8 episodes, but we don't actually see them even converse about a divorce in the series. And so when you say people forget that he's divorced, I mean, I even had to remind my husband when we were watching because I'm like, oh, no, no, no. Remember, I specifically remember one of the dads making that smart ass comment about, oh, it's
Right,
alimony.
exactly.
And that stuck out to me because I mean, I need to know if the hot guy is single because I need to know who I'm shipping him with. So stuff like that is going to stick out to me.
Yes,
So,
important facts right off the bat. And
yep.
also, can we just talk about how messed up it is that Barb most likely knows that Janie is with Cooper at this birthday party above ground, and she is the architect of the end of the world. And these nukes are going off when she knows that her daughter is out there at a birthday party with her husband. Presumably, we don't actually know for a fact that she knows this, but like, as a mother, if I know that my child is with my husband above ground, not safely in a vault, I'm going to do everything in my power to stop the nukes from being set off until I know for a fact that my child is safe.
Well, and I've heard theories that potentially either the bombs were dropped earlier than what was agreed on. So, because if you, because I don't know if Cooper would have been told, like, because at this point they're divorced, but if he still has custodial rights over Janie, then I would imagine that Barb is going to make sure that Janie is with her because she's going to get into one of those fancy vaults in order to be saved.
Right.
Obviously, Cooper is not because I would not be. I mean, and these are theories that maybe we can talk about after episode 8 because when we're going in blind here. We have no idea what the hell's going on. But now that we've watched it a couple of times and we can go back, it's all of these we have questions now. And it's like it's very curious because if Barb is so concerned, and she does, I genuinely believe that she loved at the time when they were married, she loved Cooper and she loved Janie. So the fact that Janie is not with her when these bombs drop, I think that either it happened early or they didn't actually need to drop the bombs. Like the enemy, whatever enemy they're fighting against, actually did drop the bombs, but I don't know. And so I
Right.
could believe those theories. And again, that goes back to character motivation, especially for someone like an antagonist that, as of right now, we're assuming Barb is. And it's like, you have to make it make sense. Would Barb have dropped these bombs knowing her daughter wasn't safe? Probably not. And so until we get that
I'm
squared away,
wondering,
yeah.
though, if someone else within Vault Tech who outranked her
Oh,
made the
possibly.
call
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they have
while
cell phones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like I'm wondering if someone else that outranked her within Vault Tech, I have a theory, possibly Hank.
Hmm.
Well, Hank was her assistant at the time, but
Yeah.
so that doesn't really count. But I feel like maybe somebody within Vault Tech or within like Robco or that circle
Yeah.
of
The circle.
companies
Hmm.
made that call without consulting with Barb
Yeah.
about, or they overruled her and thus endangered Janie.
Yeah. And Barb did not have either time, or she didn't know where Coop and Janie were at the time too,
Right.
in order to get that information from her, or to Coop to in order to get Janie
To keep
somewhere
the
safe.
safety. Yes.
Yeah.
And like, God, I hope they don't reconcile. Like, I have big fears about Barb and Cooper reconciling.
Uh,
I hope it does not happen.
okay, so literally, and I think that this is a good place to discuss like our fears, just because, okay, for those of you who aren't crack shippers, we have had our hearts broken so many times, because of really stupid writers, no offense, who want to sort of send a message, whether that, this ship is not morally correct, or this person of the ship that you love so much is not morally correct. So we are going to take this character and ruin him for you so you don't ship, a person with this guy. And my concern with Cooper is that they are going to my concern is that going into season 2, Lucy is going to rub off on him, and which is good, right? Like humanity. She's going to bring the humanity back, but I could see him taking that humanity, forgiving Barb in order to either, because of Janie, because he wants to keep that family intact, um, or just because it's the right, politically correct, moral, whatever word, fill in the blank you want to put, is that's the right thing to do. And I am so sick and tired of, we're wrapping up the story with a nice little bow, like a fairy tale, telling these moral stories of this is how you should behave. That's not how people work. And so that is my concern too.
Right. My other concern is that they're going to martyr him
Yeah, yes,
to
yes.
protect Lucy. And I don't want that. That's not what I want to see. Like,
Or martyr him to protect Janie or Barb herself.
right. Yeah. And that's not what I want to see. I want to see things work out for him. I want to see things work out for a morally gray character because so many people want to think that they are black and white, but like those colors start running and turn an awful muddy gray real fast when you're put in actual real situations in
Right.
real life.
Well,
And like, I just want to see morally gray, complex characters who have tough decisions to make not get the shaft for
yeah.
once.
Well, and I think that that's why I loved Marvel's The Punisher on Netflix, because Frank Castle was such a morally gray character. And yeah, it's exactly like you said. Like, I do not want him to, you know, I don't want him to go feral and now Lucy has to put him down as a
No,
callback to what happened, to Roger, or even to her mother. I don't want him to sacrifice himself for Lucy, and this is his way of earning that humanity back. I just want to see, like, my thing, and this is what I focus on with my writing when I write these dark romantic, stories, is she gives humanity, but he gives darkness. And then there's that mutual like balance of both. And so I don't want her to want to change him, just like I don't necessarily want him to change her. I want them to be able to coexist together. Like, he doesn't have to earn his humanity, is what I'm saying. Is like, he's allowed to be a human as a morally gray character. He does not have to be good or pure or any of it. Just like Lucy is allowed to be a survivor in this wasteland without having to be jaded and cynical. And I think that she has to have an edge for sure, just like I think that Coop needs to have a little bit more humanity. But to completely change that about their characters, I don't that's not something that I want to see.
It would be doing the characters a disservice. I think that they make a very good yin and yang balance with
Yeah.
one another, which is why I love what happens in some of the later episodes with the whole finger thing, which we'll get to in the later episodes.
Hmm.
But I like the yin and yang balance of light and darkness with the two of them, and I don't think they need to completely change one another. I agree with you about that 1,000%. And on the note of like she needs to have an edge, that's one thing that my husband Lake, who has very big opinions, and I love him for it. We were watching episode 1 again last night, and one thing he said we were making commentary on the episode is that he loves how like Lucy is kind of a naive innocent character because she's been so sheltered in the vault, but she'll still pull the trigger. Like she's not one of those characters who's like, oh, don't make me pull the trigger, I don't want to do this. Like when the
Right.
raiders are in the vault, she will absolutely pull the trigger. It's a trank gun, but still, like, she does not hesitate to pull the trigger, and
Right.
he loves that about her.
Right. And I think that I I love that too, because that's showing for me. And what I really loved about her, and this is a little bit of an aside, I feel like nowadays, especially in mainstream pop culture, you have heroines who are just a badass right from episode one, who are just so tough and so cool, and that's great. But I know I'm not a badass, and so I like watching people who are more who start off one way and then they have their character arc. And what I really loved about Lucy was that naive innocence of, she's going against her husband who's literally trying to kill her, but she's not knocking him across the room like other girls in that situation is. And it's not like she's not trained. Like we've seen her, like she can do gymnastics, she's familiar with a gun, like she knows how to use a gun, like so she knows how to defend herself. But going
Right.
against a
She
guy who's
spars,
literally
she wrestles.
exactly. And so it's like so for me, it's like I loved that she got knocked around a little bit because there is going to be so much growth potential. And on top of that, what I loved about the whole Raider scene is that didn't diminish her faith in humanity. Like just because all of these people came in and betrayed her and people died because of it, she was still willing to go out and believe in humanity, in that I'm going to find my dad and people are going to help me. Like when she gave water to that random farmer who was a little bit weird.
Right.
And so like I loved that she's willing to learn, but the core of who she is has yet to change. And granted, when we talk about episode 8, we can talk about, potentially how that might have changed her. But I do think that Cooper is going to snap her out of it in season 2. But again, I'm just getting ahead of myself. So continue.
Also, can everyone, like, I've seen a really big trend on the internet of people infantilizing Lucy because she's naive, and like, can people please stop with that? Because everybody who is so anti-Goolsey is like, she's a child. Like, no, first of all, she's a whole ass woman in her 20s who was ready to get married and did get married, and she was
Had
ready to
sex.
start reproducing and having babies in episode 1. Like, just because she's naive doesn't mean that she's not a capable protagonist, first of all, and doesn't mean that she's not viable for ships. Just because you don't like the ship doesn't mean that she's not viable for it just because she's naive.
Okay.
Like,
Can I just, can I just, okay, I don't know if this is the right thing to say, but as women, if we are of consenting age and we are allowed to have dominion over ourselves, our choices, whatever, then that means that includes a choice of who we fuck or who we have relationships with. And if Lucy wants to have a relationship with the ghoul, like I don't even think I think that she is not even as young as 21. I think she's more mid 20s, to be honest.
Right.
Even if she were 20, even if she's 18, technically speaking, that's legally an adult. She can choose as a woman, she is of sound mind to choose whoever she wants to be with. And that is, I think that we as readers and we as consumers of this pop culture, we are so hard on women. And like you said, infantile, like I don't know how to say the word, but you know what I mean?
Infantilizing.
Yes, exactly. And it's interesting because I think so many people forget a huge concept of we're in a fucking wasteland. So how has morality changed? Because I don't honestly think people are really going to give a shit about the law of consent. And I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm saying if we're looking at the world building, we don't know what the appropriate age to have sex with in the vaults. But we do know that Lucy was familiar with sex. She either has had sex before her wedding night or she had
Oh,
sex
she
for the
definitely
first.
has.
Yeah,
Like
like
she was sleeping with Chet.
yeah, cousin stuff.
Yeah.
And so at the very least, so we know already that morality of, well, don't fuck your cousin, that in the vaults is actually seen as it
Acceptable as long as you don't reproduce
exactly. And
in the
so
world thing.
yeah, absolutely. And so we don't know what the age of consent is in this world. We know that in our society it's 18, in most places. In the UK, obviously, it's 16. In some states, it's even younger. And again, I'm not here to argue morality. I'm here to say that we have to take our own beliefs and stop projecting it onto this world. So for people who think that, oh, there's this huge age gap, okay, then I guess you weren't shipping Edward and Bella, right? Like, come on, like,
Exactly.
shut
Or
the fuck
Reese
up.
and Feyre or Tamlin and Feyre because there's like 1,000 years age gap
Right.
there. Like the age gap does not matter. Let's just throw the age gap out the door. Plus, age gaps can be hot, but like that's a thing we'll talk about with some other
Well,
shit we
and
get to.
on top of it, to start episode 1, we've already seen her be familiar with Cooper Howard when she and her dad used to watch his movies together. So, who's to say her first crush or her first sexual awakening wasn't to an idea of Cooper Howard? Like,
Right. And
come
like,
on.
how amazing would that be?
I
Like,
would
if the writers
that's a head
did
canon
that,
in
I
my
would
head.
love that so hard.
That's my head canon for it. Like, I think that she for sure had her sexual awakening to Cooper Howard. I mean, yeah.
I'm so here for that. Like, I would absolutely love that if the writers really went balls to the wall with that and like gave gave us these things that we want to see because the chemistry is so there. It is
Well,
so
and the thing is, too, remember, she doesn't know his name. She doesn't know that that is Cooper Howard yet. And so
right.
that's going to be really, really interesting to see. I mean, we kind of, again, and this will be our episode 8 kind of breakdown, but she does get a hint that Cooper knew her dad from before the bombs dropped and everything like that. So, but
Right.
she doesn't know who he is. So it's just, again, these are little Easter eggs that during your first watch through, you're not going to necessarily pick up. And this is why it's really cool to go back and dissect them because of these little, as Taylor Swift would say, these invisible string tying them together in this little. Anyway, go ahead,
Right.
keep
I
going.
love it. I love it.
I
But
know.
yes, I also really love the parallels that the writers have given us between Lucy and Cooper, even in this episode.
Yeah.
Like I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but with Moldaver
Mm-hmm.
knowing something about their loved ones, like in this episode specifically, when she tells Lucy, "You look just like your mother."
Yep.
And then, like, that parallel later when she tells Cooper something that he didn't know about Barb. Like, I love that parallel that the writers have built in there, which is what gives me hope for our crack ship. I have hope.
Well,
Like,
yeah,
I
and they're going through that same story, but in very different ways. And I think that this could very much they're foils of each other. And you know, my I just don't want it to fall into father daughter.
no,
I
please.
know, or even to a degree mentor mentee. I want them to be like, if I've seen this on Tumblr too, like if they're not going to be romantically involved, fine, but then don't force them with other people just to keep them away from each other, kind of thing. And also don't ruin the relationship dynamic that they have. Like, I don't even think friend would accurately describe them, but it's like that mutual respect with maybe a hint of that sexual attraction. And if it's not going to be romantic, then don't, for the love of God, okay, without offending anyone, don't have it be Lucy Max Endgame where they return to the vault. Because again, if we're going to go back to character, look at how Lucy starts, episode one. She starts in the vault. She's very naive. And now she's starting to understand the way of the world. I think the second she leaves the vault and sees what it's like, she cannot go back in the vault. I don't think, unless it's to go back and get Norm and Chet maybe to like save her family, there's no way she would ever go back and pretend like that we can
I
just live in
think
the
it is
vault.
very much a Persephone moving into the underworld
Yeah.
kind of thing
I
with
love that.
her
Yes.
going into the wasteland. I don't think that she can go back. I don't think that she will want to go back
Yeah.
eventually. And now I'm going to hit you with my crack theory for
Let's
Max.
do it.
As a character, I do like him. I think he's going to become a villain.
I would actually, okay, here's the thing about Max is that he has the qualities that make you want to like him because, like he is relatable, he's trying to do his thing. He wants to be gosh,
He
no,
wants to be a hero
he
so
wants to,
badly,
but the
but
choices that he makes
are
completely
very like, oh,
selfish.
selfish, very
Yeah.
selfish.
And
And
it,
he's so ambitious. Like, I
yes.
feel like they could take Max and do with him what I think George Lucas intended to do with Kylo Ren, but do it
Don't
better.
even get me started on Kylo Ren because I haven't, okay, I know Reylo shippers. There's like, and technically it's not crack. I mean, it started as crack, but they got their fan service. But I'm gonna make a controversial comment. They got it in the worst way because that whole relationship from a romantic, like the plot line didn't make any sense. Like it just, and my issue with Kylo Ren, because I was actually talking to my husband about this because he's like, how is it? Because I honestly shipped Rey with Poe, even though they never had screen time. I wanted it so bad because in real life the actors had anyway, that's besides the point. Um, I did not like Kylo Ren. And my husband's like, well, like, how is it? And I'm like, well, first of all, he rapes her mind. And he's like, are you serious? You're a dark romance writer. Like, what are you? And I'm like, okay. So I had to really dive deep. And it's because that Kylo Ren is not that alpha male. He's like this whiny emo teenager flipping off the door after his parents leave, to me, in my opinion. I love Adam
I can
Driver.
totally see that.
I love Adam Driver. And I just didn't buy. I was like Ray, why like you saw what he did to Poe? Like I just didn't buy the character motivations. And so when you have Ghoul, who again we're getting ahead of ourselves, but literally using her as bait and all of this stuff, how is it that I can totally ship the shit out of that and not, and I'm just like, I just think it's what does Walton say in that interview about the swagger?
The swagger makes the man.
I didn't think Kylo Ren had swagger, and I think that the Ghoul does.
I think it was the way he was written, though, because Adam Driver brings plenty of swagger,
Oh
but the
yeah,
way
for
the
sure.
character was written,
I do
it
not blame
does
Adam
not
Driver
have
at
the
all.
swagger.
Yeah, he's just like when he like starts throwing a tantrum with his lightsaber or whatever. I was like, what the fuck am I watching right now? But it's not Adam Driver because Adam Driver like side note, like he would make an amazing like young Snape in anything and I would be like, "Oh fuck. Yeah, I would watch that." So it's
Mhm.
not him, it's just the way that his character was written and
Did
it's
not make sense.
no, no. And so I think that for the Ghoul in comparison to that, I just, you know, yeah, I just think that and look, let's be honest. They had to take Kylo Ren, and guess what he did? He martyred himself. And so we're just supposed to forget about everything. We're supposed to think that he earned the good side or whatever. And I'm over here just like I don't buy. And granted, like if we look at the way the movies took shape in behind the scenes, it's understandable, but still it was like this,
As
yeah.
a lifelong Han Solo girly,
Yes.
I was never gonna forgive Kylo Ren
Yep.
anything. Like it was
Exactly.
never gonna happen for me. Like
No.
no,
And I
like
couldn't I
mm-mm.
couldn't believe
I've
that
been in love.
Ray No, and I couldn't believe
I've been
that
in love with
Ray.
Han Solo since I was in diapers. Like no,
Well, and I think
it
that
just doesn't work.
no, well, and I couldn't believe that Ray would have forgiven him after that whole movie where
Right.
they bonded together. Like I was like no, I don't think that they fall in love in the next movie after all of the shit that he did. Like if he had the swagger, possibly.
It would be different.
But yeah, because I
But that's
mean,
not the way the character was written.
exactly. It's just, and this is why we're talking about this. This is why this is so important for the writing. And you can't, to me, and I think it's interesting if we look at the dynamics of just men in general and what makes a man, people or men sometimes think that if I'm yelling or if I'm angry, then that is the definition of masculine. And actually, it's the opposite. If you are in control, that is masculine. And so to
Yes.
lose, yeah, so to lose control the way that Kylo Ren did in that first movie, because he's throwing a fucking tantrum, you remind me, like, again, like that emo kid. I mean, there were so many memes of that. Whereas, like, if you have the ghoul, like, oh God. Sorry, I'm just thinking about him. Like
I know.
he's always in control, even when he's furious with Lucy for breaking all of his chem. Like he's mad, but he's gonna fucking wrap that necklace around her neck and fucking drag her over to the gulper. Like he has fuck. Okay. Okay. Continue.
But like I feel like even Monty, Lucy's Raider husband, has more alpha to him than Kylo Ren did.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
I actually was like, when I saw him, I was like, okay, not too
like
bad. I'll see
right,
where this
yeah.
goes. I'll see where
But
this goes.
I loved what the writers did with Monty though, and I love how like we really got the sense that something was off with him when he wipes his dick off on the curtain. Like I died. I looked at Lake and I was like, what the fuck? What's
No,
happening right
no.
now? And then it just slowly starts getting more and more like, oh shit. And like then you realize what's happening and that they're raiders. And I thought that was absolutely brilliantly written. And I loved what they did with that. It was genius. And the way that the actor who plays Monty,
Oh yeah.
excuse me, I don't know his name, but the way he played him was fantastic.
Well, and
Like
I
that was so
loved
genius.
that even Monty himself, it was almost like he was hesitant to kill Lucy. And I really, really liked that because it gave him a little bit of that depth. Like, yeah, they had sex, and even he said something along the lines of, it really
It
was the
really was
best
the
day of
best
my,
day of my life.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, like, you know what? Like that little tiny, and think about it, he was only in the show for 10 minutes, and yet he was a complex character. So when you're writing these characters, that maybe don't show up until either they get their own book or they might not show up. You can add these little bit of layers in just really quick, like one scene. And I really, like you said, I really loved the way that they did that. You know what else I really loved? I loved that he was stripped naked and she kept her clothes on because I
Right.
feel like in that dynamic, especially if we're writing sex scenes, if you have your clothes on, you are the one in control. You are not vulnerable. You are not exposed. And I
Yeah,
just thought
in
that
the
was really
power
interesting.
dynamic, you have the power in that situation. And I think a lot of people miss that about
Mhm.
Lucy in that scene. But in the power dynamic between them, her keeping the wedding dress on is a power move.
Right.
And
I
that
I
puts her
agree.
in the dominant position. I love that she's on top.
Yeah.
I love that she kept the wedding dress on. I love that she kept the power. and that is also like symbolic of her keeping her bodily autonomy
Yep.
and it being about her and what she wanted.
Well,
And
and
I thought it was fantastic.
Well, and I loved that, you know what? She wanted to get married. She wanted to have sex. Like she wasn't being forced to do it. She wasn't trying to run away from it. Like she wanted to do her duty for her vault. And I love that because so many stories, and not necessarily these are bad things, because I've written stories like this where like, and you, I'm sure, Regency wise, like they're forced to get married to people that they don't want to. They hate it. They try to sabotage it or they run away or whatever. But Lucy's like, no, I want to get married. I haven't found anyone suitable in my own vault, so I want to, participate in this exchange. She saw the guy, she married the guy, she was happy with the guy, she had sex with the guy because that is her duty, not because she was forced, not because she was obligated to, but she genuinely wanted to be part of uplifting all of the people in her vault and doing her duty. And I love that because you don't see that nowadays. A lot of the times you see, I want to rebel against it, I want to do this. And again, it comes back to that. It's almost very wholesome. And we don't see wholesome anymore. We see jaded, we see cynical, we see, all of that stuff. And I loved it just because that's how I kind of grew
Right.
up, and it's nice to see stuff like that nowadays,
Right. And it was like it was sweet.
Right.
And I love that they combined sweet with the power moves that they did in
Yep.
that scene.
Yeah.
And like letting her keep her bodily autonomy and letting it be about her and what she wants. I thought that was fantastic. And that like a super big nod to the writers
Yeah.
on that for letting Lucy have that bodily autonomy and like, for giving her that and giving her
Mhm.
that power and
Yeah.
like letting her continue to have that power in the wasteland when when there's the discussion with Max
Yeah.
about sex in the wasteland. Like it's the ball is in her court and I love that they give her that power.
And to go back to your crack theory about Max, which I definitely support, I would love it. Here, I'm going to raise you a crack theory. I would love it if Max made Lucy like make a choice that had to do with a ghoul, and Lucy makes a sacrifice to save the ghoul. And I would love that because Cooper does not believe he's redeemable at all. Like he even says, you're me, sweetie, just give it some time or whatever. Like he does not see himself as worth saving. And I would just absolutely love it if they gave Lucy, if Cooper doesn't necessarily realize he's worth saving because of Janie or because of Barb or anybody else, but because of Lucy, when Lucy makes a monumental sacrifice because Cooper is worth saving, just as he is, not as
Right.
who he was before the war, not as who he could be if he got his humanity back, but for who he is right now,
Right now.
right here. Yeah, I
Yes.
would love that.
I would love that so hard. And I think that would be so meaningful and incredible. And like, I personally would love to see how Walton would play
Oh my
that and
God, I was just
play the
thinking of how he
emotional
would,
impact
yes,
of
those
that. Like,
eyes. Mm.
I'm literally getting misty eyed right now thinking
Hmm.
about it because he's
Hmm.
incredible. And also, just like, shout out to the home state boy being from Alabama. I love it. It's amazing. And I love seeing him do these big things. It's incredible. Like I'm so excited for him. I think it's fantastic. And like I have a little side note down here, but when they first released uh Coop from the grave that he's being held captive in, how does Honcho know where Cooper was from originally and his connections to Moldaver? How does he know? I want to know. Like I'm
I don't know unless
that's
he's
gonna bother
part,
me.
yeah, unless he's part of Moldaver's like group or like a connection or
True,
something.
right?
Because my question is at the end, and again, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I'm like, how did Moldaver survive? Because she's not Ghoul. So was she in a vault? Like,
Right?
how is she alive? But
Was she in a vault? Was she in some kind of like the frozen stasis type thing when you play the video game like at the beginning of Fallout 4? like you're frozen.
Hmm.
And like I wonder if like she was in that kind of situation, or is she a ghoul that she just has a lot of chems and she wasn't directly in a
Oh.
blast zone?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good point. That's
Like,
interesting. Yeah.
is that a thing? Like,
Yeah.
does she just use chems on the regular and wasn't exposed enough for the radiation to change her looks?
Hmm.
Is that a possibility? Also, like, I'm really interested to see where the writers go with these things and what they do.
Yeah, I agree. Okay.
And
Okay.
I also love that Moldaver finally achieved her goal of getting her cold fusion stuff implemented, and that giving power to her little area on the map.
Yep.
I thought that was fantastic that she finally got to complete that goal. I thought she was ruthless, but I thought she was a wonderful character. Like I
I
thought she
thought
was
she did.
genuinely fantastic.
I thought she, again, it's those layers and that complexity. Even Hank to a degree, because we don't really know him. It's almost like he's the Cersei of Fallout. Because at the end of the day, I buy his love for his daughter, or else he
Right.
wouldn't have typed in that code. And
Yep.
that is his one redeeming quality. So as terrible of a person as he is, and he is terrible because his wife wanted to go up, he got all pissed off and decided to drop a bomb on Shady Sands. So he's terrible, but he loves Lucy. He genuinely loves his family, and I think that he honestly thought, not necessarily Shady Sands bombing, but the bombing before was the right thing to sort of do. And again, it's that morality, like, is that right or wrong? Doesn't matter. But I think that that is what makes that complex of a character, and you can do that in your own writing in terms of your antagonists. Because as
Right.
of right now, besides Lucy, who is kind of this morally gray, not moral, she's the innocent, kind of this pure character. And to a degree, you could say Max is almost a foil of her, but instead of making all of the right choices that Lucy would make, he makes all the wrong choices. Like Lucy has that golden rule, and that's what she lives by. And we see that through her actions. Whereas Max, he wants to be that good knight, right? He wants to be a knight, but he's not acting like one. He's
But
making
the
all of the
Brotherhood of
wrong
Steel is
chances.
very corrupt, and like
Oh, yeah,
that he's had with them is incredibly corrupt, and it's really all about power. And that's why he stole the fusion core
right.
from that vault. And for what vault 3, vault 4, I don't remember what
It was
vault it was
four.
they were
I
in
think it was
besides
four.
Spearman, vault 4.
Yeah,
Like that's why he stole their fusion core. Like it's I would so love to see him become more complex and to see him grow into a villain. I think that would be such a cool character arc for him.
yeah.
Like I think it would be fantastic.
Yeah,
And
because I
I
don't
would
think
love
that
that for him.
because I think that they are going on that redemption arc for Cooper. Hopefully, they do it in a way where he doesn't lose that swagger that Walton likes to talk about. But I'm
Right.
saying, like, they cannot do the same character arc for Max. So I think you have Cooper who's starting in that decline, that downward spiral. And especially being around Lucy, it's going to change him. Now, remember, Max was around Lucy too, and for a little bit, it kind of changed Max a little bit, right? Where you saw them with the cannibals, and he was, he's like, okay, fine, I'm not going to shoot them. But at the end of the day, when they're in that vault together, like I'm telling my husband, like, dude, Lucy's literally getting attacked by all these things, and he's just chilling in a robe drinking wine. Like, what the fuck? Like, why isn't he worried about her? He's lying to her about, all of these things on top of it. He couldn't even tell her his real name initially. And so, like, for me, it doesn't matter that he's around her. He's still going to make all of these wrong choices because he wants to get what he wants, and he's more concerned about impressing her than being that virtuous, righteous person. Whereas Cooper, he's not going to lie to you. He'll be straight. You're not going to like it. And he's not going to mince his words. But at the end of the day, he's going to look at Lucy and be like, I've never lied to you, though. Like, you know what I mean? And I think that,
Right.
again, that whole like, and if we want to do a really quick, like, connection, like if you remember when Norm and Lucy are walking down together, and Norm is literally like, what if the guy that you're with is a cannibal? And literally Cooper's a cannibal eating ass jerky. Okay. So like I honestly feel it's that Beauty and the Beast where she's kind of going and thinking she's gonna get this knight who is literally Max, right? He's a knight and he has a squire. And they're positing that, oh, this is the right guy. And then you have Cooper over here literally looking like a demon, okay? Her radiated demon. And it's like, no, that's the guy that that is worthy of our love because he has that morality, he has that code, even if it doesn't appear this way on the surface. And that is what I'm truly hoping for. But I don't, we'll see.
Absolutely. And like
Yeah.
going back to when they were in Vault 4, I believe I said this to you the other day though, like it was driving me crazy that Max was just sitting there chilling when all this is going down with Lucy and like he wasn't concerned about her at all. And I feel like had Cooper ended up in that situation with her, even though she drives him up the wall and makes him nuts, like I feel like if she had been out of his sight for any amount of time in that vault, his skin would have been crawling. Like
Yeah.
he would not have been cool with it. He would have been like, "Look, I just need to like get eyes on her, and we need to get out of here." Like I feel like it would have been a very different vibe if he had been in that situation versus Max.
Oh yeah, Cooper would not give a shit about the wine, about the bathrobe. He would not, because part of it is because he's pre-war. So again, you have that difference when you go back into Cooper's backstory of like, okay, this is why he would react differently. And again, this is why it's important when you're crafting your characters to understand not necessarily their whole life story, but understand where they're coming from so you can have them make decisions that line up with who they are. And I completely agree with you. Like if I feel like Cooper is just, for me, he's going to be that possessive, protective, like don't fuck with her, I'm going to kill you, but I'm going to give her shit the entire time. Like that's just who I see him as being. Um and
I
yeah.
absolutely love the thing I saw on Twitter the other day that I sent you, the ghoul daddy thing, like the
Oh
daddy
yeah.
vibes with him. But like he absolutely gives her shit and I love it. But like he's very much got the protective daddy kind of vibes, and I am so here for it. Like
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, and I think it's going to be a really interesting dynamic because as of right now, Cooper doesn't give a shit what he looks like because his goal, like if we're starting like if we're planning our books, right? Every character needs to start the story with a goal.
Yep.
Lucy's goal is to first it's to get married, but then after her dad is taken, it's to find her dad, right? Cooper's goal, he wants to find his family. And so in order to find his family, he needs to get, Kem, he needs to get Radaway, he needs to get Caps, he needs to get this bounty in order to get him to where he needs to go. And then Max, his goal is to just be that knight, to wear that armor. And so we have these characters who are all starting out with their different goals. And so I just think that it's really important to see the actions that they take in order to try and achieve those goals. And so the fact that it's funny because it's like because I've been shipping since like I was, I guess, in first grade or something, you start to notice things and you're just like, no, they would make a cute couple even before they get on screen together. Like I knew Lucy and the ghoul were going to have chemistry before I even saw them on screen together. Um, but
That was me with Nancy and Ace, with Nancy Drew. Like literally, I shipped them from the moment she said like a fungus Ace to him in episode 1. I was like, that's it for me. Like they are the ship.
yeah, no, I'm that it's so true. That's how I was with Castle and Karen Page in Daredevil. Like they didn't have the first couple of episodes together, but I was like, I told my husband, I was like, hun, I think if they get together, like if they get on screen together, they're gonna have a lot of chemistry together. And obviously I was right because I'm always right about stuff like this. But so yeah, I thought that as a whole, the episode has really set up their characters in a really very compelling way for all of them because you're rooting, as of right now, you're rooting for all of them. Um, so yeah. So did you have any more notes that you wanted to discuss?
I like how it initially has in this first episode, like potential enemies to lovers vibes, but as the season goes on and we see more and more of those parallels, you're like, maybe not so much enemies. And I really love the layers and the complexity that they've put into both Lucy and Cooper. And like, please, Prime, give us fan service. I'm begging you. Like, I will
But
get down on
do
my
it,
knees if I
yeah,
have to. Do it in
but
a way that makes sense, though.
yes, do it in a way. I would rather them not get together, but keep the writing the same than force it the way that they did with Rey and Kylo Ren. Like, don't
Like,
fuck up my ship. Like,
yes.
don't do it. Like, give me what I want. But, and this is, and this is like the biggest, this is like a huge issue that I have with some writers is you have something like House of Dragon in season one, and even the first 4 or 5 episodes, the writers came out and they were like, I don't understand why Damon is an internet boyfriend. Like, he's a bad guy. He's a bad brother. He's a bad father. And I'm like, if you're a writer and you're literally writing this character and you don't understand why people love him, then you are not doing a good job. And so, my biggest concern with season two, House Dragon, is they are going to completely eviscerate his character because he is bad in order to uplift Rhaenyra's character and say that she is good. And I'm like, can't they just be that Bonnie and Clyde ride or die like couple? Like, why do we have to tear down someone to prop someone up? Like, they're both badasses. I want to see a couple, whether it's a toxic couple, because yeah, okay, is he her uncle? Yeah, whatever. I don't give a shit. This is, again, that world building. Targaryens do this
Exactly.
shit all the time. I just, I don't, I don't want them to be, I don't want the writers, and this is why I'm really, really relieved that Walton has said in interviews it's a very collaborative process, because I don't think they're going to eviscerate Walton's character if he's allowed to go to them and be like, this is what I think the ghoul would do in this scenario. Because I everyone is thirsting for the ghoul. Like that, interviewers have even said to Walton, like, you showed me that interview, like, hey, did you know the ghoul was going to be hot? And I think the writers, I want to have faith that the writers know what they're doing with him. So as long as they don't do something really, like, if he gets back with Barb after everything, that would ruin his character for me. I'd be like,
That would ruin the entire show for
yeah,
me.
yeah,
Like,
that
if
doesn't make any sense.
no, just make it make sense.
Yep.
And like, if you can do fan service and give us what we want while making it make sense, you will win awards. You will
Yes.
win so many awards. Fans will adore you forever and ever and ever. And like, that's why the indie space is as big as it is because we as indie authors and other indie authors can serve consumers what they actually want to see in ways that make sense.
Well, there's a reason that dark romance is so popular. It's making so much money. It's because we want to see the complexities of these characters get together in this romantic way. It's why you have so many horror films pair sex and horror, because we're so fascinated by the sexuality and the violence of things. And because love is so pure, to have it turn on its side and be like that violence, and to me it's like I always shipped like the Joker and Harley Quinn, and so like
Yeah.
I just love that sort of dynamic. And I'm not saying, again, to go back to House of Dragon, would I want Daemon Targaryen as my real life boyfriend? I mean, maybe, let's be honest, maybe. It's like that meme, like, maybe.
Yeah, like,
But
maybe.
like, we're not writing these stalkers or these hitchhikers or these serial killers or what have you because we think that, oh yeah, we want this in real life. It's, we're living out a fantasy. Like,
Right.
do we think, first of all, every girl I've ever talked to thinks that the beast should have stayed the beast? Does that mean that we as
Yes.
women want to have sex with animals? No.
No.
It's a different, it's just a fantasy of like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just, I don't want someone to tell me what I need to do in real life. I don't need that story shown to me. in real life. Like, I don't want that. I want her to go fuck the ghoul and, you know, the end. That's it. Like, give me that
right?
because you've already
Let
set
them
it up.
ride off into the sunset together and like have their own brand of happiness in the wasteland and like stop imposing your moralisms and bullshit on it.
Yeah.
Like, I
No,
just want a good, interesting story. Like,
no, that's that. No, and that's what I'm really worried when it comes to Daemon Targaryen. I would not be surprised if he cheats on Rhaenyra, if he becomes abusive, if he becomes X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, you're just doing this because all of these girls went gaga for him, and you didn't realize that that was going to happen. I'm like, are you fucking? It's Matt Smith, and he's being a fucking badass. He literally slices someone in half for calling Rhaenyra a whore. Are you serious? You didn't think girls were going to love that? Please. And
right.
that
And it's
just,
like, okay, it's so adorable to me that Cole Hauser didn't think women were going to like Rip. Like, excuse me?
yeah.
You don't think that we would absolutely adore a man that would kill for us? Like,
Yeah.
really?
No,
You don't think we would like that?
and that's the thing, like and this is the problem. This is why we need more of these stories in the mainstream, because you have people like those, like House of Dragon writers, even like Cole, who's like, why would they like this? And it's like, I don't think you realize how many women love this shit. Like, I would say
Right?
scientific scientifically, like 98% of us do. We might not say, there is a reason why E.L. James made billions of dollars with
Yep.
50 Shades of Grey. And yet you pretend that we don't want shit like that. Like,
I mean,
come on.
why?
Yeah,
Why? Like, I like just take all the like high and mighty moralism bullshit out of it. Like, we know what we want, we know
right.
what we like, we know what kind of stories we want to consume. Give us those stories in ways that make sense. And like, I have big concerns about Yellowstone. I feel like if they don't give Beth and Rip a happily ever after, like if they make Rip leave her when he finds out about the abortion, I will fucking riot because they are
That
so
wouldn't make sense
as
for
a
his
couple.
character, though.
Yeah,
That wouldn't make
it
sense. That
wouldn't.
was
I
not,
am afraid
yeah.
they will because of something that Kelly Riley said in an interview a while back. And I'm like, but Rip would not do that. Like, as a character, psychologically, he would not do that to her. And if the writers make him do that to her, then they fucked up.
Well,
And
I'm already
they
mad
didn't
at the
do service
writers
to
for
the
their
character.
relationship with Kevin Costner. So
No.
I'm like ride or die John. Okay. So you know me. But
Yeah.
no, but that's the point. And again, it's to go back to what you're saying about Beth and Rip, and even to a degree, again, the House of Dragon. I also don't need writers looking for shock value that completely take away from the story. Like Damon cheating or Damon abusing Rhaenyra or Damon doing X, Y, and Z. That is not in his character. I'm sorry, but his loyalty to his family is his one redeeming quality. And for you to then completely take that away from him because you think that he's thirsty for power, no, he's not. If he really wanted power, he would have fucked Rhaenyra in that brothel in episode 4 and forced her to then marry him, which would have given him that power and everything else would have skipped. But he genuinely cared about her. And that's why, did he ditch her in the brothel? Yeah, he did. He's a dick. Like, we all know that. But that doesn't matter. Like, his character, it would not, his character. Like, I know I can't even speak sentences, but it's just like, I'm so fearful that I'm going to get preached to, or I'm going to, and it's the same thing with Beth and Rip. And it's like all of that seasons 1 through 5 have built him up where Beth could, and I'm not necessarily saying again in that morality, in real life, is Beth a toxic person? Should he be with a toxic person? That's not what we're debating here. What we're debating is they are together, they've loved together, and it would not make sense for Rip to leave Beth now when he could have left her for things all like, it would completely ruin his character, to be completely
Right.
honest. And that's why it's kind of like, I don't want a shock value, I don't want a morality lesson. And this is why I loved, I don't know if you ever watched Friday Night Lights, but yeah, the two, gosh, I watched it a while ago. I can't remember their names, but the coach and his wife, they went to the writers and they're like, you are not allowed to have either of our characters cheat on each other. Like that was their hard no. They're like, we can kind of do anything else, but no cheating because that did not make sense for their marriage. That did not make sense for their characters for them to do that. And that is something that I wish, and I don't know how much power kind of actors have over stuff like that, but it's just like I cannot deal with I can't deal with character assassinations for shock value or for morality.
Right.
And yeah. So so yeah. So are there any final thoughts that you have for episode 1?
I just like thought it was really brilliantly written and set up, and like I absolutely cannot wait to rewatch episode 2 and dive into that.
I agree. I completely agree. For especially since the characters haven't actually met each other, the way that they pulled off that setup was, I think, really good because we got to know each character. We're rooting for every character as of right now, like for this particular episode. And I think that they did it in such a way that was brilliant. A lot of showing, a lot of like, we already kind of dove into, Lucy and Cooper. Obviously we'll touch on Max, but we're not as necessarily passionate about him as, the others were. But it's like you can do so much with an episode like that, even when you're writing, just to set up who your characters are through a lot of showing versus telling.
Right.
So, and I mean, any excuse to get Walton Goggins back on a horse, I'm fine
Yes,
with. Like, yeah. So,
absolutely.
so anyway, well, thank you guys for listening in. I hope that you followed that because we kind of jumped around, but this is what it's going to be like. Hope you guys picked up some nuggets of, wisdom potentially. And we just love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to leave them in the comments below. Chelsea, do you have anything else before we sign off?
Uh, nope, I'm good. But like, let us know. Who do you ship in the
Yes.
comments for Fallout? Let us know who your ships are and why.
Yeah. And yeah, and we will talk to you next week where we will go into more of episode 2 and potentially connect episode 1 to episode 2 and how we're seeing more of those characters and especially our meet cute. Ooh, so excited. Okay, bye guys.
Bye.